Arkansas. I'll try to make this video outside and see how the audio comes out, how the video comes out. Fire from the hip, no thought of any idea of what the content's going to be. Drinking an Arizona green tea. Kind of a little rhyme there. Yeah, I have no idea what this is going to be. Other than it's going to be a 15-minute video. It's going to be a 15-minute talk. I do know that. Ooh, I know what to talk about. Let's talk about shipwrecked relationships. Shipwrecked relationships. I think there's basically two kinds of shipwrecked relationships. The kind where they were already shipwrecked to begin with, and they started off on the wrong foot, and they stayed on the wrong foot, and they trauma bonded. There's that kind, and then there's the kind that were pretty decent, pretty healthy, hand on the right track, but something messed it up. Something like unforeseen, mismatched values, unacknowledged incompatibilities. I think those are the two kinds of shipwrecked relationships that mainly happen, from what I see, from what I've seen so far. There's two things that can happen. Basically two roads when a person realizes they're in a shipwrecked relationship. A shipwrecked relationship can look really polished and look really normal from the outside. But that's not to say it's a complete tear out and do-over kind of thing. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying when it comes to that one point, the person's got to make some serious decisions. And if they do not make those decisions, it can become very toxic in so many ways. It can touch every area of their life. And if it becomes a no-go, as in incompatibilities, as in unacknowledged incompatibilities, then it starts to become toxic. It takes more and more effort to make it work. It takes more sacrificing to make it work, to where it becomes unhealthy sacrificing. Yes, we all got to sacrifice to make relationships work. Yes, there's times where we've got to set what we want down to make things work. But there should never really be a time where people need to set their needs aside to make it work. See, I think right there, I think that's a place where a person realizes, where they need to realize, if they're setting their needs down, or they have to set their needs aside to make it work, then that's when it's becoming, it's on life support. And I've seen this enough to where I can honestly say a relationship can go from decent to bad to really bad to straight up toxic to where it's on life support. And once it becomes like that, and where incompatibilities aren't acknowledged as such, and people go way above and beyond to make it work, to force it to work, then that's where grudges start happening. That's where resentments start happening. That's where you start looking at your loved one like they're stupid. You start looking at them like get to the point where you don't even like to hear the sound of their voice. You don't even want to be around them. That kind. That. When it becomes that, that's when it's on life support and your relationship is in a state of emergency and it could die fully. The love that was once there could fully die if those things aren't addressed immediately. You know, and sadly, the thing is there's so many times a loving relationship can wind up like that. And it can look really great on the outside. Nice vehicles, nice home, nice kids going to school, all that. And yet, just underneath the surface, it's on life support. And it's dying quickly. It's that. It's those kind of incompatibilities that I'm talking about. Unacknowledged incompatibilities. I think there's three basic things that destroy a relationship quicker than anything I know. And if anybody has the right to talk about destroying relationships, it's me. I've destroyed every relationship I've been in, or I've seen every relationship I've ever been in. I've been in something like 40 different relationships. I'm very well versed on what kills a relationship. So first and foremost, I honestly believe it's unacknowledged incompatibilities. That's it, right there. That's the killer right there. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be. It doesn't have to be the death of a relationship, and it doesn't have to be something that really toxifies a relationship. Those unacknowledged incompatibilities, if they are addressed, if they are acknowledged, approached, and processed properly, then it can work. It really can. Or at least to a certain degree to get it up to another level. At least to a realistic level of seeing that it was worthwhile. But when those things happen and they go unaddressed and they go day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and they wind up like that, and the relationship starts to toxify, and it starts to toxify by you start ignoring each other a little bit here and there. It could be something as simple as one walks in from having a long day at work and they sigh, and you just sit there drinking your coffee or whatever you're doing, and you say absolutely nothing. You do absolutely nothing. And reason being is because those unacknowledged incompatibilities, you get to the point where you start looking at them with contempt. You start looking at them like they're stupid. You start looking down on them. When you start looking down on them, it's in a really dangerous place like that. That's when your love is on life support and it's dying quickly, extremely quickly. It's like bleeding out. It's like you better put a tourniquet on it real quick. Stays that way too long, you know. And I don't even think it's the fact of, you know, some relationships they go silent, and then there's the other kind where they go just psycho, where there's a lot of yelling, screaming, breaking shit. There's those two kinds, but they're both just as damaging. There's that silent animosity, and then there's the hateful kind. And when it goes into that, and when it starts getting into like name calling, and it gets stuck in fault finding and blaming, any of those things, those 5 things right there, fault finding, the blaming, looking down on one another, ignoring one another, that's 4 of them, all stemmed off of those unacknowledged incompatibilities. That's it. That one thing that one thing dampens so much. And there's absolutely no way to avoid that. The only way to find those compatibilities and incompatibilities is to be walking through that relationship and to be having that relationship. There is no way to avoid it. You could get a couple, 3 or 4 years into a relationship and you realize it ain't gonna work. You cannot change this person, and they cannot change you. And then it's like you get this deep down notion. You wonder, it's not that big a deal, but yet something deep down inside you tells you this ain't gonna work. This is gonna be a very limited, low quality of love kind of relationship. But yet, you don't acknowledge it. You don't acknowledge those incompatibilities. You keep walking on 1 week, 1 month, half a year, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, so on and so forth. So what am I saying? Am I saying people should get divorces at the first sign of trouble? No, I'm not saying nothing like that. But I'm saying what you truly value, what's right and wrong, what's truly important to you, and the other person does not, when they do not see it as important, it's a no-go. It's an absolute red flag. And sadly, those things happen in relationships. You already be 2 years into it, 3 years into the relationship when you find those things. Because to me, it seems like that's about where they start really popping up, in that 1 year, that 1 year mark. But anyways, there's several different kinds of relationships too. It's like a relationship is a type of vehicle. It's like, what type of vehicle do you want to use it for? What kind of type of vehicle do you want it to be? Because it is a synergy. The only thing I do know at this point for an absolute fact, that you want it. You want your values, your dreams, and your goals to match up enough, to be similar enough to where whatever you're doing is actually going to be similar to whatever your partner needs. Because if it's not like that, then it's going to be pulling against one another. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be dampening each other's light. It just won't work. Sad thing is, most people let it go like that, and they leave it like that. Next thing you know, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, bam, they live their whole life like that. To me, that's a tragedy. It really is. And just because a relationship grows that way and it stays that way, in all reality, we can find a little bit of good in every bad and a little bit of bad in every good. But when it comes to something like that, that's one of the most important things I think a person can do, or people can do, is that choice of who they spend their life with. And also the choice of who they continue to spend their life with. Anyways, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It was freezing balls, icicles, degrees these past 2 weeks here in the NWA. And now it's nice and warm, as you see. Got socks on, shorts, t-shirt, out in the park, about 5-6 miles out from the apartment over here in Rogers. Anyways, Have a good one. See you in the funny papers.